Welcome to the Power Up Podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Scullion, and today we're diving headfirst into one of the hottest topics in the electric utility world, artificial intelligence. Is it the future, the present, or just a really demanding coworker that only speaks in prompts? We'll figure it out together. Stick around and we'll find out. But first, let's meet our lineup of experts that we have on today, because a conversation this big needs some serious brain power. First up, we've got Anthony.Contino, manager of substations at SBS. Anthony's the conductor of innovation, orchestrating new software solutions to supercharge substation design and more. Next, it's Ben Ferneau, technology lead at Black Veatch. When the tech map is uncharted and the path uncertain, Ben's got the tech compass, GPS, and, well, maybe even a drone to guide the way. Then there's Cory Byrnes, civil structural engineer at Beta Engineering. Cory's the guy who turns ideas into structures and figures out the best place to put them. Joining us as well is Josue Sanchez, senior advisor at Quanta Technology. Josue's got the knack for turning engineering chaos into order. From Burns McDonnell, we have Michael Bussinger, assistant department manager. Michael's got creative insights so sharp, sometimes we wonder if he's an AI bot. And rounding out this stellar group is Shawn Weekly, solution architect at Power Engineers. Shawn's the architect of possibilities, really, turning ideas into concrete solutions, literally, and finding the best way to make it all happen. So today with this group, we're pulling back the curtain on artificial intelligence in the electric utility sector. We'll talk about what AI is doing right now, and spoiler alert, it's more than just writing clever emails. And we're going to talk about where it might be in the next few years. We're talking smart grids, predictive maintenance, and maybe even AI can finally explain your utility bill. We might poke a little fun at how prompted AI can be. It's like that overly eager intern of the tech world, really. But this is serious stuff. AI is reshaping how we power the world, and our guests today are the perfect guides to walk us through it. So let's get going. All right, well, thanks for joining, guys. Appreciate y'all joining today. We'll add some clarity to this and hopefully learn from each other and brainstorm a little bit on AI. So I wanted to start and ask really, the first question of the day is, how do you see AI transforming the electric utility industry in the next 2 to 5 years? We won't say 10. Let's do 2 to 5 years. And let's start with Cory. What do you think, Cory?
So no crystal balls here for sure. And I think everybody that works in our industry gets to know the feel for how technology gets absorbed in our industry. It is rightfully kind of apprehensive at times, and sometimes not rightfully apprehensive to adopting those technologies. I mean, even 3D modeling is a perfectly good example, not ubiquitous in our industry, and realistically probably should be. I would suggest that AI is going to have a massive impact on a lot of industries. In regards to kind of my specific area of focus on the engineering side of things, I would suggest more so than not, AI's direct impacts are going to be in the space of kind of creating agents that can assist you in the design process, as opposed to fully taking the space of doing that design, and really kind of decreasing development cycles, if that makes any sense, especially when it comes to implementation of new tools and things like that. I think the smartest companies and the companies that are going to have the most success over the course of the next 2 to 5 years, I would say, are going to be the companies that identify how good AI is at writing code and implementing that capability into their workflows. So the ones that can really get to that level of, hey, I've got a 3D model I can interact with, and I've got a couple agents that are going to help me in identifying clashes, if I'm meeting concrete code specifications, if my designs look okay. And then on top of that, can then augment those agents or have those agents create tools for them to do certain tasks. Those, I think, are going to be the real kickers. And that's where I think, at least on the design side of our industry, there's going to be a major upheaval in the way that things get done, or at least there can be. So I think between that and a lot of these kind of chatbots and the way that we currently sometimes archaically communicate on these projects, I think that's AI's real implication in the near term for us.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Cory. Yeah, it was funny. It was at Autodesk University, right? There was such a lot of manufacturing stuff going on. And the last couple of years have been architectural, and this time there was a lot of AI manufacturing, both on CNC machining and creating drawing packages for manufacturing. So it was pretty interesting to see the swing that last year they're pushing architecture. I guess they had some success. Now it was manufacturing. So so Michael Bussinger, what do you think, man? Next 2 to 5 years?
I think Corey hit it on the head with making our lives a little bit easier, streamline designs a bit more. I think he and I were discussing this yesterday in the Civil Structural Committee to some degree of I think ultimately a lot of our designs are a bunch of inputs with a bunch of outputs that we then input into another space that give us other outputs that allow us to use those in the tools that we use to design. And I think AI will have a role to play in being a middleman and being able to streamline some of these design tasks a bit more.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason they couldn't have a AI agent learn Autodesk Inventor, another one learn AutoCAD Electrical, then write code to share with each other, right? Like that kind of stuff is pretty prevalent in our industry and coding. So why
Yeah,
not
I think
CAD?
a lot. Yeah, a lot of times. I mean, it's even like the math CADs and Excel calculation tools that people build. A lot of these programs can already talk with one another. We just need that one little extra step to make it happen more efficiently.
Yeah, that's awesome. I used to do consulting and manufacturing, and every time I went in, it was always some engineer said, "What do you see my spreadsheet? It does everything." All right, Wasu, what do you think, man? Next 2 to 5 years?
So I believe the one of the things that will pick it up in AI very very soon, it will be more outside of the design. Honestly, I think the portion of the asset performance portion, I think there is some initiative already happening. Some utilities already have weather uh, using predicting and forecasting weather more accurately using AI. That is happening right now. But the portion, in my opinion, for asset management, it will be uh, dramatically used. And I think the infrastructure is there. Is just the models will need to be probably interconnected with the sensors and those kind of things. And pretty much it will be managing database. Uh, and how you can tie these. And I think that you, Trevor, did a very good, I think a couple of years ago, you show kind of a 3D design coming of a substation, right? And embedding the data in kind of dials or meters or information, just using the 3D models, you can achieve both. So basically, the asset performance portion using AI and but embedded in a kind of a 3D block or a 3D design, a 3D model. Let's put it in that way. That's how I
Yeah.
see it. Maybe within the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and the work you're referring to, Wasu, is the work of the me and this next gentleman on the list, Shawn Weekly. Shawn, the digital twin stuff you and I were doing, before COVID even. And it was funny because back then everyone said, "Is that in the cloud?" Oh, forget it. We can't use it.
Yeah.
And then this pandemic.
Hmm.
So what do you think, Shawn? Next couple of years?
I I have a little bit of a different take. I mean, I know that we work on the design side of things, and we would love for AI to do some of the more tedious design stuff that, our users certainly hate to do. Like, I can't think of one designer or drafter that wants to change the title block on 500 drawings because the project number got updated, right? Uh, that would be something that, you could use some kind of agentic AI to do. But I think from the utility industry perspective, I'm looking at things like condition-based maintenance and things like, you know, I have 2 or 3 gigabytes or terabytes of photogrammic data from where I drove all my distribution circuits, and I want to look at those pictures and find out all of the busted insulators, and then go from the busted insulators and schedule people out there to say, hey, you guys need to go fix these insulators. I think, general yo mama's machine learning can handle that. It's lower level and been around a long time than the generative AI. And I think there's opportunities for us to just kind of step backwards and really lean into that large data analysis, machine learning models, and then turning those models into endpoints, REST endpoints to be called by APIs.
Yeah, great, John. Yeah, and that early work we did with the digital twins, right? Putting dashboards on it and everything.
Yep.
Like, feeding that data with web services and being able to do some analytics on it in real time it's kind of like, the old idiot lights in your car, right? Like it came on when you're already out of oil.
Yeah, we had the one, use case where, temperatures are rising on a transformer, right?
Mm.
If you're collecting real-time data on temperatures every 3 seconds and you see, hey, this thing's about to catch on fire, your operators can't, they're there 24/7, but they're not paying attention 24/7, where you could have a model watching it 24/7.
Right.
And doing, telling somebody, hey, this thing is going to catch on fire, do something about it, or even switch it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I love that predictive analytics kind of thing, having an agent ping in instead of you having to go open a dashboard and look at it now, right? It's like a game-changing way of it's a Tesla versus a 77 Impala. Not that it wasn't a great car, but by the time the little light went on, you're already broken down on the highway 10 seconds after. All right, man. So let's hit another question here, and I'm going to hit up Anthony and Ben first. What current efficiencies do you think AI could address first? What do you see, Anthony?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to springboard off of what Shawn was talking about with predictive maintenance. I think that's a great area to look at, right? I mean, you're bringing in all kinds of data from DJ analysis on transformers, any IoT data that utilities have, and especially in generation, right? You're monitoring not just open air equipment, you're monitoring motors, valves, right? Valve actuators. All of that data is manually looked at right now by engineers, systems engineers. Being able to look at that and reduce your PM frequency or extend it if you have to reduce failures is huge, especially in nuclear generation where everything's very expensive and maintenance is very expensive. So I think, like Shawn said, predictive maintenance, PMs, fantastic data that we already have, right? That we can already utilize. It's not generative AI, which is what everyone's excited about most of the time, right? Generating substations automatically would be fantastic. And I think that is coming down the line in the next couple of years. But, what we have right now, I think we have a lot of data we can use just classic linear regression machine learning models for.
Yeah, so true, right? You saw that example from that. I forget the engineer's name, but the National Laboratory put out that chat grid, and they
Yeah.
had basically Esri layers for the whole grid in North America, and they're just running some scenarios on the thing, right? In real time, all the data using weather. It just blew me away what's out there.
Yeah, like you said, you could bring other data like weather, right? And you look at companies like Doble that have been recording data for forever, right? They have power factor information, tan delta testing, from all of their customers. They have a massive database of data that we can use right now for machine learning, applications.
Yeah, so true. All right, I'm gonna hit up Ben next. I see Ben waiting in the wings.
Yep. I think the biggest inefficiencies, like y'all have been talking specifically about engineering, but from the people side of things, the Gen AI is really, really good at letting people talk to computers in a way that has been limited to programmers for a long time. So getting the ability to just consolidate and find information, like using it pretty much like a search engine, but for your own internal data, is something I see as an up and coming quick solution for saving a lot of time and preventing errors. You don't have to go find the same answer 5 different times in 5 different locations. and maybe it's the same answer every time, maybe it's not. Consolidate all that into one location, ask the bot, it'll give you your answer. That's been, I think, the biggest inefficiency gain I've seen is getting laymen into the field. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I think Autodesk had highlighted some stuff they did with Fusion 360, right? And it's like it was doing that kind of predictive design where you're, maybe it looks like you're drawing a breaker, or, it looks like you're modeling an insulator. By the way, here's 10 in the library that are close, right? Stuff like that in real time, being able to have that kind of access to information is crazy.
It's Clippy. It's Clippy 2.0. That's what it is.
Yeah. Full circle back to calculator watches and Clippy. All right, let's circle back to Cory. Cory, you got any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think specific with regard to inefficiencies, I would suggest to you just the broad term inefficiency encapsulates not necessarily everything we do, but AI is going to expose virtually inefficiencies everywhere, in my honest opinion. I don't think it can be really overstated just how aggressive, just how important pace of play is going to become in the AI age. And that's going to really kind of, I think, change the map for the way that both contractors and even utilities address how they go about who they're going to do business with and things like that. I think AI's capability to identify pattern recognition and optimization opportunities is going to start to essentially say, hey, look, it's kind of a push-shove cost situation between these two options. What gets us to production level, or in our case, energization faster? And the companies that are going to be able to identify how to make that happen, that pace of play is going to really start to, I think, morph the game from what it historically has been as, hey, how can we be the lowest cost bidder on this item, to, hey, how can we be the fastest to production on this?
Yeah, yeah, well thought out, man. Anybody else want to weigh in on the inefficiencies idea before we move on?
It seems like the biggest impact, at least in this group, is the AI, the machine learning from AI, because AI is a big term, right? It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's most recently been generative AI, but the machine learning and neural networks and whatnot have been around for quite a while at this point, and I haven't seen that take off like it really could for data analytics. And I think that's what correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to make sure I'm right on that, Cory, is that's kind of what you were talking about with finding those inefficiencies, is having all your data analyzed to say, hey, here's where you're like, here's our biggest gap in inefficiency right here. Is that what you're?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you can't do any of that analysis, or let's say, I'm on the contractor side of things. So utility comes to me and says, hey, we're looking to do this, and they want us to find a location. They want us to figure out a layout. They want us to essentially figure out everything for them. The companies, and they want everybody. They're sending that out as an RFP. Hey, give us your best shot. The companies who can provide those shots and say, hey, you might be able to go with a guy over here who's going to give it lower budget price, but I'm going to be able to get it to you faster. And if you don't have that data to harness to do exactly what you're talking about, Ben, it's going to be very hard for you to compete in that space.
And then you insert generative design right there. There was during AAU, it was actually a presentation that was being done by a professor from a college somewhere in the UK. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it was actually teaching design the generative way was the title of the course. So if anyone wanted to go look that up. But what they did was they used generative design to create a folding bicycle. And it created, I think they said somewhere around like 300 different designs in a matter of, a few minutes, hours, whatever it was. And they then took those and narrowed it down to a certain few designs that they actually liked, and then move forward with those to ultimately, in the end, in a 6-month period, go from an idea to an actual physical object, where before that would have taken years. Just to come up with the number of designs that the generative design tool came up with in just a fraction of time.
And it's far more accurate than letting the marketing team do it, right? They used to get their
Right.
napkins out and start sketching ideas for us.
Yeah.
Not helpful.
So it
All
seems like
right.
this is gonna. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Ben.
I would say this is just going to highlight new inefficiencies that weren't there before, like data gathering.
Mhm.
There's a lot more data we need to gather and
Mhm.
analyze. How are we going to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to a lot of things that Shawn's been preaching for years, right? It's SIM and coming up with something common that we could all describe all these components together, which we've failed to do still as a consortium. Our whole consortium group still can't get it together. And it's going to really become critical now. As we're looking at terabytes of data that we need. So Shawn, I plugged SIM. I did. I told you I'd plug it. I
Thank
plugged
you. Appreciate it.
Maybe-
Preach it. Preach, man. Preach.
AI is going to be the thing that pushes it over the edge.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to need it now. All right. So a couple of things were mentioned. One was, and I like it because we kind of skipped over, was AI, right? You can't just say AI, right? I mean, it's linear algebra, it's regression math. I mean, it's not just AI. There's lots of different things. So let's move to the next question. We had, if you could implement one and we called it AI technology, which is pretty broad, what would it be? So what's the one thing that you would implement now? And we're going to go with Anthony first.
Well, it's tough to choose one, but being an engineer previously, it would be very nice to have, generative AI, as we were talking before, generate substations, right? And using chatbots, it simplifies what you need to know on the AI, on the substation side, right? It allows you to get into that space quicker. So you might not need to be an engineer. You could be a designer or a drafter, able to pump out these substation designs quickly. And not just for greenfields, right? For brownfield designs as well. So a lot of times you have an emergency, you need to get designs out quick to swap out this equipment. You have critical customers. Doing those designs manually takes a lot of time. You have to roll mobile units out. You have to get outages. You have outage delays, material delays. The quicker you can get that material and those designs to the field so that you don't have to roll that mobile unit out. You don't have to hit your own end budget, right? It allows you to get those going. The maintenance guys can get out there. You combine that with the predictive maintenance that we talked about previously, and now you have a product that is not only generative, but predictive as well. And I think combining both of those into one product would be fantastic, right? I would love to see that as an engineer previously. So
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's good, man. I could see Ben getting ready to talk. Ben, you wanna weigh in on the first AI you'd implement if you could?
That was it. Trained AI agents, I guess. So specialist agents to do specialized tasks for, like you're talking about with engineering or proposals, be really good to kick out your proposal really, really quickly and have it be from not just like, I know we've talked about just kicking out a substation, but specific to each individual discipline. Because a general substation is, yeah, we can lay out that, but what if we need to make a change to that? What if the client comes back and, as they do, they want to change something, and that's their right, and that's why such a challenge for engineers to then take what we have and modify it while it's still viable, still not going to hurt anybody or fall over. So throwing that into an agent that can change on the fly and not just have to kick out an entirely new thing. Because I could see the client saying, "Oh, I like this bit, but change this bit over here." All right, let's give that to an agent to do, and then kind of on the opposite end of that for QA purposes, like let an agent go in and look at this and say, "All right, this steel's going to fall over, or you're not using the right bolts here, or this foundation's too narrow." Point those things out without having to like pre-program a big CAD software to do that it doesn't have to necessarily know all the stuff that you tell it. It can just go scrub some physics documents or already have been trained on civil, structural, electrical, whatever. And so it can see those things that aren't obvious like at a glance, but it knows that's too small, that's too big, that's too heavy. Like that thing. Because yeah, the AI is always watching, whereas people get tired and overlook things. So
Right.
I do
It's
that.
funny. I've been messing around with that kind of teachable agent, right? So I'm using Microsoft's AutoGen stuff for it, but it'll actually correct, right? It'll put the data where you could use it, and it'll know the answer for the next time, kind of thing. Which, that's relatively new, right? We didn't have to compile a whole large language model to do it. It just you can kind of correct it on the fly, right? Which it couldn't do before. But
I think
I could see
Microsoft
Wasu
is
there.
training those up. They're gonna have agents like
Mhm.
that for us. So I want to see just what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Wasu? I saw you nodding your head, getting ready to talk.
Yeah, well, I think basically aligned with what Ben mentioned, uh, especially talking in this design spectrum. I think the QA and QC, that portion could be improved. I mean, better than having just a person reviewing 100 drawings that probably, let's assume that the 100s are review, but if not, anyhow, if the AI can just compare uh, maybe previous drawings that which the model was trained to, like he was saying, maybe the spacing was constantly for 69 kb was, I don't know, maybe 6 feet, and well, in this case you were using 12 feet. He can point, the AI can point you, hey, you, it's not a common clearance that you it's normally used. Or the same thing with arrestors and PTs and CCVTs and whatever is specified, or even wire, how is wire, because it's the model will be trained, and you can train it with all or previous drawings, and as well with the standards and specification that you IEEE standard, or the utility own specification and standard. It will match. That's, I think that's a that can happen soon. It's I don't see that happening in the next 5 or 10 years. I think it's could happen a little bit earlier in that case.
Yeah, awesome. Yep, I agree. Let's go over to Corey.
Yeah, I think if there's one AI just tool or technology I could implement, I mean, certainly the agents would probably be my number one. I think that's been noted a couple times here. And at the end of the day, the agents are kind of the fundamental way in which these tools potentially get implemented. So just because for an alternative space where I think outside of the design space, that a lot of people in our industry aren't necessarily seeing or currently applying the AI aspect of this is project management and essentially financial analysis and financial management within companies. There is a huge impact that is going to be felt in these two departments, in my honest opinion, that exist at all of our companies, both contractor and non-contractor. The capability for data in an Excel or anywhere within a company to be identified and analyzed by even just one machine learning system. Its ability to identify patterns and recognize where there's shortcomings or projects are falling behind where they really shouldn't be falling behind. It is going to, if companies decide to invest in it, have a major impact on the way in which we respond to challenges in projects, kind of like what Ben noted. When a client comes to us, if you get an email from a client, there's no reason, in my honest opinion, that Copilot can't read that problem, identify that it's a problem, set it up as a task to address in a meeting. There's no reason that can't be done right now. So things like that, if people get really clever about the way that they can implement it, I think those are areas outside of the design space that AI, I would like to see personally in my company, start to get implemented.
Yeah, great points, Corey. That's awesome, man. Anybody else want to weigh in on first AI technology they'd implement tomorrow if they could? All right. I thought for sure someone's going to say the first AI we should implement is a new podcast host that's automated and intelligent. So well done, guys. Well done. Well, let's move on next. All right, so yeah, so for engineering firms, how would you see AI changing how the design is approached? And we started talking a little bit about this, being able to do generative design and put together a bunch of designs. But any other ways you see the kind of AI changing the way design work is approached? And I think we got Anthony's up first.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, right, the generative AI, we've really been talking about that quite a bit. And I do see that as a natural progression, right? We started with drafting with pen and paper. We moved up to maybe 2D drafting with AutoCAD or MicroStation, and now we're into the 3D environment. It's just natural progression that you would go into a generative AI type of environment, I think. Um, but in addition, right, bringing in, let's talk about, say, augmented reality, right, which is I would say that's an AI type of software, right? You're using AI in that situation. Using augmented reality for maintenance applications, right? Going out in the field and being able to, or not being able to have to go out in the field is a huge benefit to engineers when you're managing numerous jobs, right? Doing those walk downs is very beneficial to see clearances. Can you bring trucks in? Can you construct it? Can you maintain it? Where are your underground cutouts coming in, right? So being able to see that virtually in the office or remotely helps you do your designs much quicker. In addition, when you have, say, animal intrusion, right? You have animal, squirrel gets in, blows your breaker up, right? You're able to visualize that without actually having to go to the field and again, get those designs out quicker. And feeding that information into an AI agent, very beneficial as well, right? So it's tying all that together and bringing the maintenance crews into your design. It's bringing maintenance into your design is a huge aspect that some newer engineers I see miss. It's great that what you have on paper is fantastic, but if you can't build it and you can't maintain it, it's not a good design, right? So
Yeah, that's a great point, right? So it's one thing to see it, right? I remember, seeing my first like massive transformer in the yard. I think I was at Southern Company, Shawn, and went out in the yard. I said, "Where's the transformer?" He's like, "You're leaning on it." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it looks a lot smaller in a 3D model." It's actually see the environment be something. And I know Autodesk launched their Workshop XR, right? You can pull the models right out of the Autodesk Construction Cloud now and open them up in, whatever meta virtual reality or XR you have. So see where that goes. But yeah, awesome point. Let's go over to Ben. Ben, what do you see? How do you see AI changing design work for us?
Um, just a lot less human time spent on just the overall design. I see it consolidating, gathering information, analyzing information, putting that to paper, I guess pen to paper. Uh, we're already trying to find as many ways to optimize creating the CAD files to be more efficient and getting those out to the field to be more efficient. We can have it regenerate most of what we need based on a Word document. That's how we start. So if we can teach it how to do what a person does by just reading the scope of work, give it its best shot, throw it at an Esri model or a site scan so it knows what the field looks like that it's trying to build on, go for it. Or for PNC specifically, there's no reason we can't give it a scope of work or a one line and have it just generate out the entire deliverable package from that. That's to me, that's shocking that hasn't been done yet. So
Yeah, Randy Brunette's gonna be calling now.
I look forward to it.
We need AI. Yeah, Michael, what do you think, man? How do you think AI is going to change our industry and workflow?
I think it has the potential, especially to like reduce quality and communication errors. I think as we continue down this path, I think it'll potentially allow more of our global practices to consolidate into one. Like, I guess, for example, all of our utilities use different global practices in every single one of our companies. Rather than having individual groups work on individual projects and then communicating throughout that life cycle, potentially if generative design gets more intelligent, you could you could give it a scope of an entire project from the transmission lines to substations, distribution work, all of it, and then have it do those generative designs as a whole rather than individual projects. I think that might be a little far-fetched right now, but I could see that happening.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yes, and Shawn, you want to weigh in? You're only last because you filled out the sheet last. That's the only reason that you're named.
I thought Cory was ahead of me, but sure, I'll go. Uh, so, specifically for automating and changing our design work, in my head, I have this vision of having a bunch of little software programs that do very specific things in design. I want to update a title block. I want to change the layers in a drawing. I want to rename some stuff in the model, or I want to replace a breaker or something like that. You've got 4 or 5 different, probably dozens of little applications that do very specific CAD things that designers hate to do. I saw a post, I think it was on LinkedIn not too long ago, where it said that, we don't want AI to paint or create movies for us. We want AI to wash our dishes and vacuum our floor so we can paint and, create movies. We need to focus on removing that pain from our designers and our drafters. If we can do that, then we free up their brains to do what we pay them to do, right? We don't pay people to do tedious crap work. We pay people because they're smart, and we want them to do smart engineering math things that I can't do. So if we can teach AI and models and agents to do those painful things, I think we'll make a lot of fans on the design and the drafting side.
We totally pay people to do tedious junk. That's
Yeah,
definitely
we
a thing.
do, but I think they want to do something else. I think they want to paint.
Yeah. Mental load, taking away the mental load for a lot of that stuff, I think is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, I think so too. Cory, you want to weigh in?
Well, I just think I think you guys are spot on. No question about it, Shawn. In my honest opinion, I don't see a circumstance in which the AI serves as a creativity resource over over being more of a manual task resource. It definitely serves, in my opinion, best, at least in the near term, as a manual task tool more than anything. But from the creativity side of things, what I do think we haven't touched on too much that I think AI serves a very good job at is assisting in the creativity process that certainly myself, and I think humans in general, go through as they go to kind of conceptualize what things look like. And that's some of one of the ways that I think AI is going to implement in that really kind of development cycle reduction that I've noted as, if you're at the higher level management level of your company, your production, what you're doing, the cycle that you're going through is kind of what Shawn had noted with regard to, actually, Michael had noted with regard to the way your company is structured and how maybe you should be consolidating in certain ways. That's your production. That's really what you're producing to make sure that your company can then produce a product to a client. That's your role. And if you can speak with an AI kind of machine learning algorithm and go back and forth with them, that AI agent can, one, start to learn your intricacies as a human being, how you're thinking. You can start to bounce some pretty strong ideas off of this new AI agent that gets to understand you, gets to understand where you're trying to go. And that generative design, the generative algorithm in the background is going through millions of permutations of ways in which you can get to that end goal of kind of, hey, I want to structure my company this way. How can I go about doing that? Nah, I don't like that idea. Scratch that. Let's come up with something else. That's a real power that I think is going to change that creativity cycle for a lot of people, especially at higher levels of companies.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, I definitely see that. I think we're all in agreement. It's augmenting all that mundane stuff we don't want to do and helping us be more creative, right? Being able to add to the creativity. Plus, it has no feeling. So when it comes up with a crappy idea, you just say, "That sucks," do it over, and it just does it. Nobody cries to human resources. It just does its thing.
This is the one thing I can't get used to about AI so far. I am always polite to the AI. There is no reason to be polite to the AI. It doesn't.
Please. Yes.
Please.
Yeah, you don't have to ask please.
No, no more please, no more thank you. I'm
Yeah.
almost worried how it's going to impact my communication outside of talking.
Oh yeah, that's another story.
Yeah, you
I'm
guys think
always,
that, but when the AI takes over, it's going
yeah.
to hunt down the people who was rude to it first.
That's right. When it's blowing up our cars, like, oh, I remember you. You were polite. You're okay.
Yeah.
Even if I don't have to be nice to the AI, I like it says thank you, and like it's polite back, so it makes me feel good to be polite to it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna just do that.
Oh, that's good. All right. So this is we're all pretty much everyone on here is competing for work in one way or another. So, do you think AI is gonna, increase competition or consolidation for our industry as a whole? I know we'd all like to see the utility companies consolidate a lot of their data and information, but in general, you think AI is gonna increase the competition or help us consolidate? And let's go, Corey. You were last time, so now you go first.
Oh, so this is a really tough one. To be totally honest with you, I could see it going both ways. That's the worst answer I could possibly give to you. But my fear is that it will drive consolidation because I do see our industry as being historically pretty sticky, not necessarily quick to adopt new technologies. And I think if you can really well implement AI, similar to the way that Shawn's noting and Michael's noted, and I mean, everybody's discussed with regard to AI agents that are doing specific tasks and keeping them focused on just individual and not getting, lost looking at the forest and through the trees, trying to solve all your problems at one time. Just if you're at a company that's focusing on very intricate, specific tasks for applications for AI, I think you start to accelerate a good bit pretty quickly, and your trajectory becomes pretty exponential pretty quick. And that path of growth, I think, is going to introduce even more consolidation in our market space. I compare it to structural engineers previously who never transitioned to BIM. BIM overtook the structural engineering and architecture side of building design, and companies that succeeded and did really well, specifically structural engineering firms that did really well in the advent of BIM, were the ones that adopted BIM. And the ones that didn't adopt BIM, to be honest with you, they withered and never really were able to get past that plateau. And the further they went without jumping to BIM, the harder it became, to the point where it became virtually impossible. And they just said, hey, I'm just going to stay a one-man shop until I retire.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I was reading a story last week. Was the company that was doing all the intelligent lidar scanning for self-driving cars, right? And like 8 years ago, they literally had rooms full of people that were watching frame by frame as it went through the lidar scan as a car drove down the street, and they would draw boxes around stop signs and people, dogs, and they would try to segment everything and frame by frame by frame, and then another company now in San Francisco has a neural network they trained obviously to look for objects and segment the lidar, right? So they're just moving on. They could do entire video segments in like an hour, right? As opposed to sticking with the old way of trying to segment everything by hand. So yeah, good point. So yeah, Jose, let's go, man. Let's see what you have to say here on competition or consolidation.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of I will say maybe, and that's a question from my end for you guys too. I hear some concerns, especially some engineering firms, naturally concerned related to what will happen with AI, because knowing that can do a lot of things. So the first thing that comes to mind is it fully it could be a consolidation, a reduction of labor, to put it in that way. But I don't think we will get there. At least I don't know, maybe for the next 5-7 years. I don't think that will happen. I think what will happen is it will complement the firms. The difference will be who have been embrace, the AI technology in one way or in another that give them advantage in and competition in the business, right? Will set them apart, because if you can do this faster and accurate, that the customer will look into that. Yeah, I can bring an example. uh, I am working right now. I'm been working. This is an old topic, but still, which is the object detection in terms of distribution and transmission line. Right now, the only way that used to be collected that data was with a handheld, maybe with a tablet or a cell phone, going in the field and collecting the data. And that is could be a 400K project for a medium-sized utility, and could take a couple months. Obviously, if I can come in and do the same with an AI approach, using a camera and just write the feeders, an example, write the feeders, and at the same time is collecting the type of asset that are attached on the poles, the location, and how long took me. Maybe it would take me, I don't know, 1 day per substation. So that will separate who can do the work faster, less expensive, and accurate. I think that's where I see it happening. I don't think that will affect in terms of you will always need people to do some cleanups and correct stuff, and so I don't have that concern of in terms of affecting the engineering firm in general.
Yeah.
It would be positive. I think it will be positive.
Yeah, great. Yeah, outstanding. What do you think, Shawn?
I think the potential is there for there to be a level reset in the industry. I think what will happen is that there'll be a certain number of engineering consulting companies uh, and utility companies that adopt technology. And note, I said technology. I'm not just talking about AI. I'm talking about, maybe not move into the future, but step away from the past and come to a new play, a ball field. That ball field is different than yesterday's ball field. And for everybody who wants to keep playing ball the old way, they're going to get spanked. So I think that really what this means is that there's an opportunity here to scale yourself up in the technology space, in the AI space, in digital transformation, data, all of it. And if you take that opportunity, you go forward. If you don't, you go away. And I think that's where we're going to be.
Yeah, great point. And that's a perfect lead in, Shawn, to our next question, right? So a lot of our customers and even some of the engineering firms are just getting into the BIM and digital twin, and they're really just getting started in that space. Do you think a lot of them just kind of leapfrog the whole thing and go through just setting up BIM and move right into the AI?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
I hope not. Um, and I say that from AI is software. BIM processes are processes, and you need to know your processes and be able to do your processes backwards and forwards, inside and out, with the tools you have, in such a way that now you know where all the pain points are at, and now you can automate them. Now you can create agents to do the work. Until you know that, you can't just silver bullet short circuit it by sprinkling some magic AI on top. That'll be a catastrophic failure. So, I know that there are lots of people out there hawking some AI stuff, stating just that, use our AI, shablamo, and you'll be, 50 times more productive. That is snake oil. for sure.
Yeah, it's comparative to even the jump to 3D, right? And back in the day, everyone had 2D, and you'd go through we're just going to redo this design from 2D, and we're going to put it in 3D. And you'd start doing it, nothing fit together, nothing was ever corrected, right? You start seeing all these issues in 3D.
Well, you
If
saw it
it,
with BIM and digital twins a lot, right? You know,
yeah,
BIM came in to the utility industry. BIM came in and it was like the silver bullet. Like if you go with BIM and create 3D models and all that stuff, then all of your problems will be solved, and you can spit out a substation in a week. Uh, and that's good if you got libraries and if your data's good and if your standards are good and you do all that stuff beforehand. But they jumped to the end and started with the model and tried to walk themselves back. And we've all seen where that's been a problem for us. You can't do that with AI. I mean, you can, right? I mean, you can certainly, sprinkle AI dust on something, but it's going to be a soup sandwich.
I like you said soup instead of the other word.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We want to stay family friendly here.
family friendly. Yeah. So, Michael, what do you think, man?
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, you don't see you know, great AI processes being developed by someone who doesn't understand the initial process to begin with. And you see that a lot of times, very motivated individuals that want to bring that new tech to the forefront. They come in, just trying to blaze a trail and then hit a brick wall head on because they didn't understand what was supposed to come before. And so I don't know that I could explain it any better than Shawn did there.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. Cory, let's go with you, man.
Yeah, I'm a believer as well, that the digital infrastructure has to be in place for you to implement these AI tools. That's something that I pounce on at my company as much as possible. Hey, we have, in order to get these fancy, cool things that you see on LinkedIn, that you see on Instagram, you have to have this digital infrastructure in place for these to stand up on. And infrastructure, whether it be digital or physical, requires investment. It's really just very synonymous. And in my honest opinion, I think the likelihood of a traditional company leapfrogging kind of the digital infrastructure to straight to AI design side of things is highly unlikely. I can potentially foresee a circumstance in which a company is a new entrant into our market space that is really kind of very forward thinking in the way that they intend to apply that stuff. But most of that is still going to require, that company's still going to have a base level of digital infrastructure. In my opinion, that probably looks something like BIM, if not exactly BIM. It's again, very similar to AI. That's a pretty broad-based term as well. Could look a lot of different ways. But there is going to have to be that digital infrastructure in place, in my honest opinion, for there to really be that place for an AI to springboard out of and people to really harness.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement, right? And probably because we're coming from an engineering side, it's there's no secret science, right? It's math. It needs, computers need numbers, AI needs a lot of numbers. There's nothing really secretive about any of it for us. And yeah, those posts on LinkedIn where, you get a PDF document, now it can write a whole book. And did you read the book that it put out? Did you read it? I mean, it's not, no magic black box. It's a lot of work, right? Does anyone else want to weigh in on the whole kind of digital background needed for AI?
And just for devil's advocate, you could use AI to help you get your digital background created for BIM.
Yeah.
So you could put the cart before the horse and have it work, but you'd have to bring in someone who's a specialist in AI to then do that.
Well, you want a lot, there you go.
Ben, you that is very fortuitous. That is exactly, what I think very clever companies will learn to do. For example, if you're a very smart company, in my honest opinion, you might start looking into bringing in computational designers, people from other industries, and even programmers that have the understanding of how to manipulate some of these generative computational methodologies, not even necessarily just AI. But to your point, I mean, Shawn mentioned, in order to have a BIM model, you need to have a BIM library to pull from to put the model together. That's true, but you can, if you're very clever in our space, in my honest opinion, you can have a computational algorithm that you built over the course of a day or maybe even a week that, say, builds out all of your insulators. That's a simple, basic explanation or example, but I totally agree, Ben. I think if you're very clever, there's stepping stones just before AI that look a lot like AI that can really get you a long way to that digital infrastructure without a lot of the heartache to get there.
Yeah,
I
very,
think
very well
we're
said.
forgetting that we're focused, we're filtered on an engineering, especially utility engineering, but other industries have been doing BIM for a long time. Other industries have been doing computational analysis, generative AI outside of what we were doing. We're trying to learn it ourselves and apply it internally. But a startup or heck, even one of the big firms could come in and just, you know, maybe Microsoft or Google comes in, trains some agents on how to do what we're doing, and well, they don't need us anymore. They can design a substation and they just need someone to review it, PE sign it, and then yeah, we are out of a job because some computer programmer trained an agent. Because the PEs still have a job because they have to sign and seal stuff legally. But
I think this brings up something that I'm curious to hear the rest of the forum's kind of perspectives on this. Our industry is not necessarily quite as free market as some of the other industries like building design and things like that. There's quite a lot of, for lack of a better term, politics that come into play. And with the advent of a lot of these larger companies like Microsoft, like Google, that are really starting to heavily invest in the energy demand that they have, and identifying, those are going to be private market players. That's going to be private dollars, in my honest opinion. For the most part, that's going to be either off-grid or tangentially connected grid energy that they're not going to have to necessarily play by all the rules by. That potentially changes the playing field entirely for some of the people that service those individuals. And I think, Ben, that potentially opens the door for some of those new clever thinkers that have to come into our space and say, hey, why do all these people do it this way? This is archaic. Don't do that. And they build their own infrastructure to service those clients who have, frankly, very high demands. Microsoft, Google, these are companies that are going to expect turnaround times that we cannot personally most of the time meet in our industry right now as the industry stands. I'm curious to hear what everybody else thinks of that.
I agree. So, I mean, take your Microsofts and your Googles and your Amazons, the big data centers where they're doing a lot of computation, things like that. We're already seeing in the utility industry where these people are calling up and saying, hey, we need a customer sub because we're pulling, X number of megawatts off the grid. We need to update our customer sub. And oh, by the way, we're also over here, we're investing in solar or wind or nuclear. I think I saw that Google dropped some change on small modular reactors. They're going to have their own grid and they're going to design their own infrastructure. They're going to go hire electrical engineers, and those electrical engineers are going to come up with substations that use their, generators and put it into their substations on their distribution and transmission lines straight into their data center. They're going to have a surplus of power. They're going to want to sell that back to the utility companies, but they don't have to, right? They could just waste it, I guess, or store it in batteries or whatever y'all electrical people do. But the fact of it is that they will compete with each other. A Southern company doesn't compete with a Duke, doesn't compete with a TVA, doesn't compete with a NextEra. All the utility companies, they have a gentleman's agreement where we just, we do what we got to do to keep our part of the grid up. We compete amongst the engineering companies, but we don't drive the innovation because we're taking what the utility companies give us. But Google and Microsoft and Amazon and these other things, they would, they are all about beating the crap out of the rest of the market. And that drives innovation and that drives change. And they will beat us because we don't compete.
Yes and no. So
I
might have to cut this part because I don't know what I'm allowed to share and what I'm not. We've worked with
Yeah.
some of those clients, and they have tried to reinvent the wheel, and then have come back and said, because they do want to push and go fast and fast, like faster and faster, and they want to have the latest tools, but that's not always the case. They have had to fall back on what our design processes and procedures are because we've been doing this a while, and we've been dealing with NERC and FERC and all the different federal loopholes and guidelines and all that stuff we have to deal with. So while they might want to have their extremely fast, rapid development, they still have to touch our grid at some point, which means they still have to follow all the same guidelines and rules that we do from a utility standpoint, unless they do what you say and they just have their own off-grid grid.
Yeah,
personal grid.
that was my question. And is it feasible to believe that if there was some kind of small modular reactor, nuclear or whatever, or if Google goes out and buys 20,000 acres of property and 15,000 acres of that is a solar plant, they wouldn't even have to be on the grid.
Yeah.
Then they could do whatever they wanted to.
That's my understanding
Wouldn't be
too.
beholden to NERCs and FERCs and anything. That they're just off grid.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Microsoft is turning 3 Mile Island Unit 1 back on, and my understanding is they're not connecting to the grid. It's solely used for AI data centers. I don't think they're going to connect to the grid. I mean, they have so much power that they need. What's the benefit of them selling the energy back, right? Like you said, they have to go through NERC and FERC guidelines. They have to bid into the energy market with PJM up here. What's the benefit of that?
Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or wait for a utility to get more power because they want
Mhm.
more power.
And that is happening right now. So obviously, I cannot share names or things like that, but we are constantly working with owners or developers of data centers that they are looking to invest in a microgrid. And I will share something here that is maybe you guys already hear it before, but it's surprising, but not surprising. This is a kind of a mixed feeling because they are looking to simulate. They already know what we do with the relays. What are the rules? What are the NERC rules? They even do the chips for many of the relays that we use. Well, guess what? They are willing to invest in the real digital substation. Why I should have a relay physically, and why I cannot have it in my data center, and I sell you on a space, focus on NERC compliance and all the settings and all the digital relay doing the specific stuff that you need. It's happening. When will be commercially available? No, don't know, but I think they will start looking to use it on their own facility when they develop these microgrids or solar farms or using a reactor. It's something that is for them. They will start implementing the famous digital substation, which for many people we say, well, we already have digital substation with 61A50. No, it's not that. It's they want to simulate basically the relays internally. Which is possible. There is a lot of challenges and the NERC requirements, but I am sure they will work that through and will make it happen. So it's like you say, Shawn, they are driving the innovation. They are going ahead of us, and they are testing the stuff on their facilities, and at some point will be commercial, I would say. So when that will happen, I don't know. I mean, but just to keep it in that way, it's happening now. It's something that is happening.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey guys, I think that's a wrap for this one, at least for episode 1. And this is going to be a 3-part series. So for those of you listening, check back again, check out episode 2, and we'll see you on that one. So thanks again, guys. I really appreciate the time. Thank you for listening to the Power Up Podcast today. If you enjoyed this conversation and you're not yet a member of the STSIC, join for free at stsconsortium.com. Be part of the community and all these great conversations. And maybe you'll be the next guest on the Power Up Podcast.